Welcome to Embracing Essence. I'm Amy, and today we have Monique Riofrio, a friend, a kundalini instructor, yoga teacher, and she's sharing her story today of her path of healing in various ways, and how she's now a coach helping others on their own journey, and how what has brought her to her path of service. So enjoy.
Right, as like this sober being and like learning how to like deal with my emotions and stuff.
Yes.
And like feeling like what is like my true path and my true nature, and like getting to know that again. And now, and it had been a really long time, like that was like a good 6-7 years. And then then I start like resonating with more people, like more like yoga community, like minded, sort of felt comfortable around. And then when I moved up here, I met this wonderful group of ladies, and I was like, oh, I felt so safe, and I was like, this is great. And I'm attracting, right, it's like my vibration has been heightened, so now I'm attracting the same vibrations. And I was like, this is so great. And I wasn't really like thinking about it in the way of like who I'm sharing energy with, because I just felt so good until now. So what, I've been here 2.5, 3 years, and like I have like my people that I hang out with, right? We don't see each other every day, but like if I'm gonna give time and energy to people, I'm like, yes, I know which ones that I like resonate towards, and there's ones that I'm like, oh my God, I want to resonate more with. Yeah.
Right.
And then I had this woman who's been like, I've been very curious about her, and she came into my life, and we started kind of hanging out in group settings. And I was like, oh, we haven't hung out one-on-one. Like, let's do that. And like, I'm literally like to the point of I was physically getting sick in my body.
Wow. Your stomach was hurting that bad?
Yep. I was like, and I'm like talking to, my close friends, and I'm like, dude, I have this like stomach thing going on, and like, I'm not sure what's happening. And like, I wasn't connecting the two. And all of a sudden I was like, when I went to walk, I like literally was walking out the door, and I was like to the point of like, am I gonna like get sick? Like it just like, I asked, I was like, what is this? Finally, right? Like sometimes I forget to ask.
Right. We all do, right?
I'm like, oh yeah. What's happening? What is this? And like this woman's name came into mind, and I was like, shit. I was like, okay. And I had some encounters with her where I was like, whoa, like it was just too much familiar energy. And I think that was like something I was attracted to, right? I was like, oh, this is familiar. Not really thinking like, is this like healthy familiar or unhealthy familiar? And it's not healthy for me right now in this moment. Right. And
I love this.
I don't want to like push anyone right away necessarily, but it's just like, I can't handle this person's energy. I have no idea how to communicate that at all. And I was like, okay, when I'm done with what I'm doing, and when I was supposed to hang out with her, I'm going to like send her a message and just be like, I'm going through something. I need to be on my own to figure this out, which I think is whatever. I don't have to explain anything, but still.
Right. The need to explain yourself.
Right. I'm like, that's another ding. I'm like, oh, if I have to explain myself to someone, like,
so
I'm like,
I love
learning, like learning all these things, because I haven't really dealt with this experience in a really long time, because I've just been like alone. And then I met like a small group of people, and that was awesome. And now it's like, also, right, I'm putting myself out there, and I'm like, wow, like I'm really listening to my gut. Like the lesson was like, listen to the gut, right? Like just listen to it, because it knows. And I maybe didn't handle the situation as good as I would have liked, but I didn't know what to do. I shut down. I like did my thing. I had other people, right, that are very important to me reaching out to me that day. And I was just like, I need to answer this phone call. And I did, and I was on the phone for a really long time, hung up the phone, go to text her, another phone call comes in. And I'm like, this is also a really important person and I need to give them my energy, right? And I did that, and I was just like, I'll just, right? 3 hours later, I'm like, okay, I have to message this person. And I was like, hey, like, this is my day got out of hand. This is what's up. It's now 7:30. Like, maybe let's hang out another time. And she's like, oh, I could come over. We could just hang out, watch a movie. And I'm like, no, I need to be alone. And her response was not very nice. And I was like, oh, like, I felt so bad, right? I was like, and then I was like, wait a second, this is just another thing that's showing me that, like, this person, I'm not better or worse than them, right? She's not like good or bad. It's just like not the right energy for me at this moment in time. And I'm going to honor that and be okay with it. And then
wonderful.
It was amazing. And then my whole body, stomach feels great. Haven't had a problem since.
Dude, you spoke your truth.
I was like, whoa, right? And then I still have these little moments of like, okay, I just lost a student or a client or whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Had a class the next day. She didn't come, which she usually does. But I was like really happy she didn't, because she's overpowering. So when I have new students or even just students, I can't talk to anyone after class or connect with them because she's automatically here all over. And I'm like, it's not her energy may not feel safe for some people. And I was noticing that because it didn't feel safe for me for some reason. And I was like, noticing again, like, okay, what's my lesson here? Like, what wound, right, do I still need to work on? And so that when this happens again, I have like a better like toolkit to navigate.
Yes.
Right?
So beautifully put. I love this whole thing you just said.
But yeah, so I just wanted to share that. And it beautiful. Also goes along with practice and the kundalini and all this stuff, right?
I know, right? Yes.
It's just like, yeah.
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah. Yes. And I was like, what's happening?
Yeah. I feel like her energy definitely, she was reading into it. She understood where you were coming from. Did she like to hear that? No, but it's okay, because that was what she needed to hear or feel from someone else, because you're holding the mirror up at that moment.
Yes.
You're having her see that energy she's putting out isn't resonating with you. And so it will help her go back and like refine how she is and how she shows up.
Thank you for saying that, because that's like, right, we forget that like there's all these lessons here on both sides.
Right. I know. So I mean, you're learning a lot and she's learning a lot, and that's how we communicate. And that's energy. And that's exactly, I was talking to my daughter this morning, the youngest, she's throwing a fit for no reason, right? Like, she could have easily expressed herself with words, or she could have chosen, like she did, to scream and yell and like say blah blah blah. I don't want to, because I'm like, well, you could have just told me that you didn't want to, or you didn't have to, like, it's something for school. But I'm like, look, you have energy, you're spewing everywhere, and this is kind of a habit that we do, right? Like, we're doing this more and more in our family, and I don't think that we all appreciate this energy that you're vomiting everywhere. Like, so just become aware of how you're acting and how it affects others.
Yeah.
And then you'll find that if you start acting more with awareness, you're going to have other people receive you better. Yes. And they're going to get along with you better, and you're going to like them better. It's going to be crazy and amazing. Totally.
So it's like, once we change like our vibration or our perspective, then the world around us changes, versus trying to change the stuff around us. Like, that doesn't work. Right? It's like, change here and then everything else changes outside. It's like this, it's so easy. It's like simple, but as humans, we make everything very complicated and we forget. And it's just like being reminded and like surrounding yourself with people who remind you. Yeah, especially in the beginning. Like, I think that's why in the beginning of my transformation, I was like, I just like was alone and I was doing a lot of like inner work, but I had a community because I was going through a teacher training, right? So I had these people who were also kind of resonating on that same level that I could at least connect with. I think we were meeting twice a month, like 2 weekends a month or something.
Mhm.
So it's like I wasn't even around like we all lived somewhere else,
Yeah.
right? Like where we were, it was just like, someone's an hour, someone's 2 hours, someone's 45 minutes, someone's 5 minutes. It's just like we're all everywhere, but it's really nice to have that community, really.
Support team.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
That's like physical because we have our other team, right? That's like
Totally.
they're there. I was talking
The
to my
unseen physical team. Yeah,
yes,
non-physical team.
I was talking to my nephew about this and I was like, you know what? Like people have always been like, you have a big presence. And I was like, that's because I have a big team with me. I have a lot of people supporting, or entities, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And
beings of light.
And he was like, oh my God, I love that. And I was just like, I'm like, yeah, it's not that I'm like overly, like sometimes I am, right? But like,
not really.
Well, now, right? So
Oh, right. This is your family member from before you became more. Okay.
Right. So like I
remembered who you were.
Yeah, like I was operating from this place of fear, right? And rejection and hate.
All your wounds were present, right?
Right. And that's what was leading me at that time. And that was easy or seemed the right way or the easy way because I was lowering my vibration with all the substances I was using. And I was just like, I had this big presence because I was like being loud and obnoxious at times, because that was like a way for me to protect myself.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I'm like very like, I feel very grounded and I'm like, oh, like I've always shown my real person, like little blips throughout my my like addictions and what have you. And people who saw that and connected with that are actually still in my life. Right. And those people that didn't see that and just saw the big, expressive, crazy girl are not in my life anymore. Right?
Yeah.
And it's
right, yep. That's just what happens when we go through raising our vibration.
Oh my God. And it feels so good. Like at first I was definitely like, okay, like I'm not gonna have any friends, but I love being alone. Like I've always liked being by myself.
Self-time is great time.
Like I've really enjoyed it. And I think it was a safe place for me to be alone when I was growing up. Like that was the safest thing is like being by myself, doing artwork and whatever, dancing, whatever I was doing,
Yeah. Creativity is allowed.
Yes. Yeah. So
yeah, I love this.
Interesting.
Yeah. So let's go into what you do, and we can go from the beginning, like start up talking about like on our path we are often led astray in the very beginning on a big level to show us where we are. And or you end up starting to question your reality because it all just doesn't make sense. And when you ask questions, you get answers, right? So when you ask for more information, you're given exactly what you want to know, right? You just have to, and you're shown where to look. It's amazing.
Yes.
So, but your path begins with really, we all have our traumatic childhoods. I know we all do. Being empaths, we feel so much from everyone around us and we absorb it, we take it on as our own, and we just become these unhappy people because we've been so shut down, right? And then we come to our coping mechanisms of either escapism one way or another.
Totally.
It happens. And all the vices across the board are all very similar. And for you, an example, like you chose to have alcohol, and I know there's more, but like we all choose these different things along the path. to kind of escape our realities because it's too much, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And then, right, we end up attracting the people on the same vibration. So they're like, my world I was in, this was all acceptable. Yeah. Oh, sorry about last night. Don't remember. And they're like, oh, no worries. Right. So it's like, no one's holding me accountable for my actions. They're just like, because then they have to hold themselves accountable, which is what I find out later. But so, I had my moment of, I just really didn't, I felt crazy. I felt really crazy. I was hurting a lot of people. I wasn't remembering anything. And I had this moment where I was still drunk the next morning. Someone that I care about deeply was like, I don't want to be in a relationship with you. And I was like, awesome, right? Great. I lost my mind. Not because I was like, I need this person, because I was like, no one is going to want to create like a beautiful, like loving, caring relationship with me if I am the way I am. I am unpredictable. I take things the wrong way. I make up a story, and then all hell breaks loose and I offend and hurt people physically, emotionally. And yeah, of course. And I was just like really angry, and I just remember being like, I don't want to live. Right? Again, not because someone broke up with me, but because it triggered this thing of like, I'm a mess. Right? Like, I can't handle myself. No one could, I just felt so lost and despair. And I was like, I remember just like being on the ground, being like, what's the answer? Like, what do I do? Like, help me. And what automatically came was just take the one thing out of your life that is causing you problems. And I was like, alcohol. And I'm like, oh, I was so terrified when I realized, and I was like, well, what does that mean? Who am I? That I was like, oh, no, I was like, no, because then they win. They, meaning the people who fed me the fucking lies that I didn't realize that I was still holding inside me, and that were like pushing me in a direction. Yeah. Like, it was my choice. But at the same time, when you were told repeatedly over and over again as a young child that you are a bad person, you start to believe it, right? And it's like, all of a sudden I was like, no, like my driving force was, they will not win. And I'm gonna do this. Like, I want to love myself. I want to like be loved, and I don't want to hurt anyone or myself anymore. And I was like, from that day on, I haven't touched a drink. It'll be 10 years on November 1st. And what happened next is I was angry. Had a lot of time on my hands. And my friend, who was kind of in and out, I actually happen to have two really close friends that I grew up in high school with, now that I'm remembering, that flew in because they were supposed to come anyway, and they were there. And they were staying with me at my house, and they kind of like, yeah. And they, they weren't like, oh, like asking, they were just like, accepted my decision, didn't go into it, and I was just like, cool, like, let's go do this, let's do whatever, right? Whatever we're doing. They weren't bringing any substances in. They never really drank very much anyway. And then after they left, I remember my other friend had come in and out while they were there, and he was like, you need to do some yoga. Because I was like, oh my God, like, I'm just like super emotional, and like, I'm like really angry. I was like, I'm so angry. And I wasn't really I was like, I don't know what I'm angry at exactly. And he was like, you need to like do yoga. You need to like get in your body and like connect to your breath and like it'll help you. And I was just like, all right, fine. So I was like, I was really hesitant to go to a yoga class because a lot of the yoga teachers that I knew in the area I was in are like, everything's great, and like kind of talk like that. And I was like, everything's not fucking great. Like, no, like I want to feel what you're feeling, but like
Yeah.
I cannot connect with this person. And he was just like, oh my God. He's like, okay, like I will come to your house, I will teach you yoga. And I'm like, thank you.
Oh.
So I'm like such a rat sometimes, but I was like, I knew myself and I was just like, I'm not gonna get
Yes.
the full experience. And I knew that.
Yeah.
And so he came and we spent an hour and I was like, oh my God, I love this. Like it felt good in my body. It reminded me of gymnastics, which is something I was really into that brought me joy, right? Like I started remembering what brought me joy. I
Yeah.
started remembering the things that would fill me up that I forgot about because I had been so numb. And I was like obsessed with yoga, right? I was like, yes, because my mind would have those moments of like less obnoxious chatter. And I'm like, oh, so great. So I was like, yes, I need more of this. I need more of this. And I lived, going to a yoga class for me at the time was a 3-hour commitment because it was about 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
You go to class for an hour or hour 15, right? You talk this. And then 45 minutes back. And I was just like, that's a lot of time. I still went to class as much as I could, but I was like, you know what? I need to do this at home.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need a yoga teacher training like immediately. And again, right, that's like part of my also like an addictive personality is like now. Like I need this now.
It's support, but
right?
You're calling in the right support rather than the wrong support, right?
Right. I'm like, okay, now. So I was like, okay, like looking, I looked from California, like up and down California coast to Hawaii to into Oregon. Like I was like, who's doing a teacher training? Like what's going on? What schedule works with mine? And finally I found one 45 minutes away. The dates worked for me. No idea who this woman was. It was just like, cool, sign me up. Great. Like I was like, whatever.
A few days a week or a few days a month?
It was like every other weekend.
Oh, cool.
For I want to say about 6 months was my first training. And so I was there like Friday through Sunday night. And yeah, it was amazing. But yeah, I was just like, cool, I'm gonna do this. I don't like think about, I'm just like doing it. So I get there and it's a room of 12 women. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I was like, what did I do? Like automatically, right? I'm like, oh no.
The energies, oh no.
I'm like, and like, but of course I was there and I was like doing this. And again, like I was still like very angry, or like very judgmental, very like, right, about myself, others. And I didn't realize how much trauma for me was surrounded and connected to women until I was there. And I was like, oh, right. I just was, all these things are coming in. And like, that's kind of what a teacher training does. It really brings you in. It's like the best therapy ever. And that training broke me open. It shifted me from, right, I like removed the substance, but I was still the mindset of the, oh, I can't do this, or like,
it's a limited mindset.
Yeah, that I was still in that. And for a good like year and a half, 2 years. And then I took this training. It was a vinyasa training. So I thought, and the woman leading the training is actually like really into kundalini. And she was, and still is actually, a psychologist who works mainly with women. And I was like, wow, like, thank you, universe, right?
Yes.
Like, amazing. So we're in this training and I'm starting to open up and like talking, right? We're doing these talking circles and she's asking us questions and I'm just like what drives you, or like what holds you back? And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, that was my answer.
Yeah.
And she let me get away with it for a little while. And then she's just like, okay, that's like a really easy, right, way to like avoid and not go in. And she's like, I'm going to come back to you, because the topic that day was, what happened to you that created your story, whatever that holds you back. And I was just like, I don't know. I didn't even like try.
Yeah.
I was
like, I don't want to go there, right?
No. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So I sat there and I listened to 12. Well, I was the 12th woman. So I listened to 11 women speak to what that was for them. And as each one of them's talking, I'm like hearing very clearly in the voices that were saying the things to me. And I'm like I can't even imagine what my face looked like, because it just like, as the people kept going, I was just like, I could feel my whole body. And I'm like, I'm just like, at the end, I'm pouring.
Yeah, you're pale, probably.
And you know, she, like, my mentor looks at me and she's just like, okay, like, we're closing the circle. And everyone left and I stayed. And she was like, do you want to tell me what's going on? And I just like said all these things out loud, right? I was like, I was told repeatedly that I was a bad person. And that person in turn told my sister that, who is 10 years younger than me, right? Like, beware of this person, she's bad. And I just thought, like, my parents are divorced, this is my stepfather, yeah. Like, right, if something was wrong here, someone would have stepped in. So I thought this was normal.
Yeah.
Come to find out, that's actually not normal.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh my, like a whole other, but it felt really good to like release all this and realize, like, now I have a choice. I always had the choice, but I didn't know that. Yes. Right. And I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So moving through my training, doing Himalayan kundalini, so working with the energy body. So what Himalayan kundalini does is it works with every cell in our body. Yeah. So our cells hold memory, and they hold memories of stuff we remember, and they also hold memories of those things we don't remember. So they're stored in our cells, and one way to help release them is by doing these kriyas and working with our breath, working with mantra and the movement of our bodies. And it is amazing. Like, at first I'm like, this shit is crazy. Like, what?
It looks crazy. It sounds crazy.
Oh, yeah. We're talking like, if anyone's seen OA, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, you're like, what is happening? And they're opening like a portal or whatever. And I'm like, I'm like, oh my God, that's like what we're doing. So, but we're opening the portal like to ourselves and to our highest selves. And we're tuning, we're using our natural breath and our natural voices and our bodies to tune this like very intelligent vessel. This vessel knows, right? It's
yes. Into the higher frequency of your alignment to source. Right,
exactly. And like, once you start doing that and feeling these, like, once I had an experience and finally was like, okay, like, we're doing this, and I'm just like, whatever. And she's like, just do, like, I'm here. Like, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna just do this and I don't even care. The minute I dropped in and stopped worrying about what I was actually doing, I had such amazing experiences. I cried at times. I could just feel my energy in my body, like awakening and like coming alive, right? So I'm healing myself on a cellular level simply using my body. And
Amazing.
I was hooked. I was just like, this is amazing. It helped me really move through a lot of emotions. And without that practice, like I really wouldn't be sitting here today.
Right.
And I love sharing them because it's good on all levels, not only if you've like had addictive patterns or not, but there's like, there's different, they're called kriyas. There's different kriyas to align to all sorts of different energies, right? Like I work a lot with the chakras, and now I know, because of studying for so long and practicing, I like know which ones are blocked, which ones need to be worked on. I'm really connected to my intuition now. I've created this like it's like I don't want to say stillness, but this way of teaching my body, reminding my body that it has the ability to, right, like expand and contract. It has the ability to like handle a lot of what's going on, and like, but I could always come back here to stillness. It takes me out of that reptilian mind, connects me to my higher self, where it's like before I react, I'm like, I breathe, and it's like most of the time I'm just like, oh, like I'm here. Once I bring myself here, I'm like, everything's fine, right? And like, yeah, sometimes shit isn't fine, and that's fine, right? Like,
yes, but you have taught yourself to have the clarity when it's not clear always outside of us,
right.
and how to tap into that.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
yes, it's like it's very a heightened version of the version I told Hadley this morning, you know?
Yeah.
Tapping into that energy and becoming aware of what you are, and then responding.
Yeah.
And that takes a shitload of practice.
Oh, exactly. Like this, like my being, like I've been practicing consistently. It's a consistent thing. It's like I was just talking about this morning. It's, you know, when I started all this stuff, meditation's a huge part of my practice as well, but I do breath work and I chant mantra, and that's part of my meditation, to slow the mind down. The thoughts are still there, right? I'm just noticing them, and I have something to come back to, which I use mantra. And you know, in the beginning it was like, oh cool, like I'm meditating, and then I like wouldn't meditate for months, and then I'd meditate again, and then I wouldn't, and then I was like, you know what, it does something, like I'm showing up for myself. So it's like me letting, like uplifting myself and being like, I could be there for myself in this moment of everything's fine. So if I could, you know, align to that every single morning when other things come up, right? My body's like, oh yeah, you could align. Like it's like I'm just creating like a new groove, right? In my neural pathways. It's like, so now meditation's not an option. Meditation is like brushing my teeth. Like I have to do it every single morning. And if that means that I don't get as much movement in that morning, that's what that means. Because for me, meditation is more important than movement, because it aligns and tunes this like vessel that I'm in, you
maintains your frequency.
Right, exactly. And it's just like, it's really important to have something that is like your practice that aligns you, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be like traditional meditation, but like if you think of the one thing that you're like, oh yeah, I have something that like really centers me, I'm sure it's something like that is in a sense meditative, because it's taking you here. So meditation,
it could be gardening.
Present, exactly. And that's the, like, there's a misconception. They're like, you know, people are like, I can't meditate, and it's like, why?
I think we need to rewrite the words into something different, like completely different, so it doesn't have this stigma of like chanting and like being a little Buddhist monk. But really, what it needs, I think the word needs to be something like, you just call alignment. Like
alignment, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna just align this morning, and then I'm gonna do my day.
Yeah.
because that's really what it is. It's like, and that's precisely, you hit on so many great points. I could talk forever to you, but oh gosh. But this is something I've been doing a lot too, learning this new healing modality I've been doing called Acasma Quantum Energy. And it's the same, you know, you're tuning into this really high frequency. And this happens to be a newer frequency that's now introduced to humans because it's quantum. And when you meet the energy in the quantum, you're doing all those things you mentioned with your body. You're calling in this really, really divine frequency into your, like, every cell, and you become like you're humming in this vibration of clarity and connection, and you're connected to the universe and God and all these words, you know. And that's the most important thing, is to just remember these little tricks of how to be a better human, right? It's not that hard, but it just actually takes the actual self-discipline and self-love that you need to cultivate by learning and learning and learning over and over again, by getting back on the horse and trying again.
Yeah.
You know, and just building that muscle memory of feeling good, because we've been trained to feel bad for so long. That's the comfortable state. And so getting ourselves into a higher vibrational state of being, that's what we will start to crave.
So yes, right. And that's the thing, right? We're just like, we're taught, right, that feeling bad, that's normal, right? And it's like, well, no, like, why do I have to do that, you know? And like the gaps in between, right? Like when we learn new practices and we're like, oh, this feels good, then we like fall off the wagon, then we come back, blah blah blah. Like those spans of time get smaller, right? Because once you taste, right, that divine connection, it's really hard to turn around and walk away forever.
You come back. It's like,
come back.
It's like honey. Like, it's it's like nectar. It's like you literally like to experience that feeling that that you can connect to, with the breath, with intention, with, it doesn't have to be, you know, kundalini yoga or Acasma. It could be anything. Gardening and connecting yourself, but visualization actually really helps. You know, it does bring everything into to having like this more perceptual reality being more real too, and that more you practice, the more comes online as well.
So exactly. That, like,
I remember when I couldn't even see anything, it was just blackness.
I love, like, so I've been like working with people one-on-one, it just naturally started happening. So now I'm like moving forward and trying to, you know, create more of so you know, they were like, oh, like what? And I was just like, and I had been planting seeds of all sorts of like present moment, like, right, we're always living in the future or the past. And I'm just like, right, this person was very like, okay, in 3 years this is going to happen, and then 3 years this and that. And I'm like, okay, it's great to have a plan, but like, you fall to pieces when you don't meet that plan. And it's just like, I think you're stressing yourself out a little bit, you know. And just like kind of be, and I was just trying to, you know, plant little seeds, get her to like maybe open her perspective to something else. And she just like, it was like really hard. And then finally I was like, oh, you know what, I'm just not speaking her language, right? So we could say the same thing, right? I could say the same words that you could say, but we're gonna say them differently. Get our point across, and like, that's just like our own little language, and then we're gonna resonate with certain people, right? That's why there's so many different teachers, because we all
frequency.
And it's just like, so I was like, okay, there's like a disconnect here. So I sent her an Eckhart Tolle book, and I'm like, read this book. Within days, she was like, oh my God, you've been trying to tell me this for years. And I was like, yes. There's like, she's been on this like journey and this like awakening, and like we still talk regularly, and just like the transition and where you know, it's just like on the path, right? We sometimes get hard on ourselves.
Oh,
We like
immensely.
forget, right? We're like,
Guilty.
oh, right? It's just like, I was like shaming myself the other day because of everything that was going on. And then I had to stop and be like, okay, I need support right now. Right. Like, yeah, we all need support sometimes. And like reached out to my good friend and we're just like having a conversation. And she's just like, dude, you've come so far. Like, this is great. Like, this is so great. And I'm like, oh, what? Yes. Like, you know, and just like, I feel like some people are just like, oh, once like you're on this path, like everything's just like fucking rainbows and unicorns. And I'm like, no, but it's awesome. Like when like, you know, the darkness comes and like I have those icky, sticky moments and like I'm in it, it's easier for me to get out of it because I'm like, oh yeah, this is not going to last. This is a moment. And this is like a place of growth, really, right? Like from the darkness comes the light, and if there wasn't light, right? It's like this whole thing.
Contrast.
It's just, that's how it is. And it's like, I love when I hear people like awakening and their story and their journey, and they're just like, oh my God, it just keeps unfolding and da 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 da. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't stop. And like, I know some people are gonna find that like daunting, but it's
ever expanding.
Where you're like, no, like it's like curiosity, you know, it's like an adventure. And like this life there is never a dull moment, right? There is never a dull moment. And like also replacing words. Yeah, like I'm like, oh, I'm so busy. I'm like, no. Like my life is full.
Yes, this is a great point. I was talking about this. Well, I was actually writing about this a lot just recently. The frequency of words and what we say matters. And because our words and sounds carry vibration. Obviously, you know this, kundalini yoga, right? So the words have frequency, and this is like Dr. Emoto's studies as well, and water crystallization and you know, carrying energies and resonance and all this fun stuff. And recently we got structured water here on our property.
Whoa.
Phenomenal. Let me just tell you, it's amazing. So, but I was writing about the frequency of words and how much weight they carry into manifesting our reality.
Oh yeah.
It's like spelling out the words is actually a spell, right? All these words are just like reminding us that our words have power, and we create with our words, and it just puts it into home, like into a frame of reference of understanding that is really, really basic and simple. It's not complicated. And it's, you speak your words, you speak your reality into light. What you want to attract, you actually receive.
Yes.
Your intention, like, I don't know, it seems so cliche to like say, oh, well, you know, create your reality. You just have to like imagine it, right?
Right.
It's literal.
Right. And that's like, right, that's like the whole funny part. You know, I have friends that are like, oh, come on. And I'm just like, really? I'm like, have you tried that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, try it with something simple. And they do, and they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like it
experiment, right?
Yeah, like exactly. And I'm just like, you know, some people need to like have that proof. And it's like, cool, there's stuff out there that proves it. There's experiments that are done, like, right, like on the water and plants and right, people's vibrations. And it's like, I mean, there's so many case studies too now that like have different groups of people and like how their words do affect them. And it's like a clinically proven thing now.
Oh, for example, my daughter, she's in 10th grade. She just told me last night in her finance class, she's taken at high school. High school here is amazing.
Nice.
And much better than where we were in California. But I want to say, she was told by her teacher, this guy was so convinced that he was freezing to death on this train back, I don't know where this was, but he was on a train car and he was freezing and he thought he was freezing to death. And so he actually froze to death. But then they looked at the actual facts and it was actually 50 degrees. But he killed himself with his thoughts that he was freezing to death.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Phenomenal, crazy, extreme point.
But, right? Like, yes, that is, yeah. I've
Right.
had so many instances where I'm like, yeah, I have to like tell my body, right? Because like sometimes we have stuff in our body that's not even ours from this timeline.
Oh, right.
And I was experiencing this, like, it was around when I would start to get hungry. Okay. All of a sudden, my body, like my physical body, was like starting to like freak out. Like I'd be like, whoa, I feel like I'm gonna pass out. Like never happened before. And I was like, what is going on? And like no doctor could explain this. Yeah. And finally I sat down with this woman to do some energy work, and she's like, okay, something is coming in about a past life that like you need to hear about. And I was like, okay. Mind you, woman knows nothing about like the food thing and what was happening with my body. I hadn't like told her that I was there for something else. She's like, oh, so in a past life, you were a prisoner and you were made to starve to death. And she's like, does that? And I'm like, thank you. Since that day, now I am able to be like, when my body's doing the crazy thing and I'm like, okay, I forgot to bring food with me. Like, right. I'm like, okay, hey, we're okay. We're not dying. And like, I'm gonna get you food like in 15 minutes. So like calm down. Like we're good. I'm not right. And then it like my body calms down. Yeah, I still feel like a little off, but it's not to a point like it was getting to a point before I knew all this that like I was starting to have panic attacks.
Yes.
Yes. Right. And I was just like and I'm just like, I was just like, what is like, I have no control here. What's going on? So it was like this beautiful moment of, wow, right? Like, yes, our words are like super powerful.
Yes. Love this example because it reminds me of our energy body, right? Like,
yeah,
we're taught all about our physical body.
Right.
And there's a medical system set up on our physical body, but there's no medical system set up for our energetic body. Equally as important.
Oh yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Especially when you start aligning to that and working with that, like weird shit starts to happen.
Completely. And it's like this different, higher understanding of what the hell's going on with our physical body comes into play.
Yes.
And this reminds me a lot of something I started with from my beginning of my awakening was something called the emotion code. And it really, really helped me identify where I had some trapped emotions, these trapped physical ailments, that were bothering me, and I didn't know why, right? It was I was in my head, 100%.
Yeah, totally.
Not even down here at all. But I had to understand, ask questions, had to know why, and then, I was very impatient. I was like not gentle on myself, right? But I found this emotion code, and it really did tune me into my body, into understanding, oh, okay, well, all of these feelings that built up over this one thing added up to be this. And now I have this higher understanding of my emotional body and how I could release that emotion so I can feel better. And it would happen so quickly. It really just needs like awareness, attention, and like to be seen.
Right.
Right?
Right. Because we're like, no.
Right? When we repress, we don't see, we don't acknowledge, it gets bigger.
It gets bigger, it stays longer, right?
Yeah.
And now I've been like, oh, I'm resisting something. And I'm like, okay, like that's like my like compass, right? So to say. It's just like, oh, resistance. I'm like, I'm not just like, okay, cool, I'm resisting that. No, I'm like, okay, is there resistance because, right? I'm like pushing something down because it's hard to feel it, or am I like resisting it because there's like that instinctual like survival thing, which is like that's the whole other thing with these bodies. They're like, we have our survival instincts, and like sometimes because we've evolved so much so quickly too, it like hasn't caught up to be like, oh, this isn't like a threat, like you could calm down.
Right.
You know?
Right. And then being able to remember to tune into that one, the stillness,
The stillness.
to
Yeah.
realign is
Mhm.
so key, because that's where we're back to like that 0 point.
Mhm. Right.
And we can see things from a different perspective.
Mhm.
Love it.
Yes.
Love it. Yay. So I was going to say one more thing. So this is really the beginning of the series of, I'm going to be interviewing a number of ladies regarding wellness and everything wellness for ourselves, and bringing awareness to wellness, and carving out space and time for doing these activities of alignment, to in whatever you choose, you know.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Well, right.
yoga is amazing.
Sample the flavors.
Yeah. But if you haven't tried Kundalini yoga, I mean, gosh, it's really fun. Even just Kundalini, you can just mantra and chant.
Just right. Well,
It's,
exactly.
It doesn't have to be movement, but it's super helpful, right? Because you're moving the stuck energy in your body, right? The whole point.
Yeah.
And what was it? And this morning I tuned in on a class that you were in, and that was amazing. I loved it. I actually recorded myself doing the mudras, doing the Acasma while I was doing it. So I totally tuned into that heart frequency. Before I was doing Acasma, I was in my head, and then I really tuned in and I got into my heart doing that mudra, and it was like a floodgate opened.
Oh yeah.
It was amazing. Okay, so I may have to like share that one.
Yes.
Let's see. And then let's tapping into we're all in this space of awakening, and we're in the beginning of our awakening. We don't know the tools to help us heal, right? So we're searching in all sorts of directions outside of ourselves, and seeking out there. Always, right? Until you're told, well, look that way.
This way.
Yeah. Because that's where the healing begins, and that's when your reality shifts, and you call in to being more aware of everything around you, and you call in your best life, right? Step by step.
Yes, exactly. And then like once you start healing and tuning this, like everything else just seems to start to kind of align to that. It's very interesting.
Yeah, the law of resonance, right? Divine resonance.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Like if someone told me that before, I would probably have been like, I don't know. But I've experienced it, right? Like,
yeah,
sometimes you have experience.
Your whole journey really is you remembering your divine feminine.
Yeah.
And embracing that, because it was scary. It's scary embracing your divine feminine, right? Because when you're grown up in this very masculine world, and you're told to be a certain way and act a certain way.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't feel comfortable honoring the emotional body.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's baby steps to get there. And we are always incorporating more and more of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And right, like there's so many different things to like get you there. And I mean, just find your flavor, find your people, listen to stuff like this. Like I still, to cultivate my vibration, because I'm human. Yeah. I like forget every now and again, and like I know who to reach out to, or I know like, let me go like listen to this person on YouTube today, like whoever I'm drawn to, because there's so many amazing people that are sharing these messages, and like we all need them. It doesn't matter who, even those people sharing the messages, listen to other people sharing the messages.
Totally.
We need to be in remembrance, right? Like we're not lacking anything. We have it all. We have the love. The love is here. It's just a matter of like uncovering the muck. It's like the lotus in the mud situation, right? If there wasn't mud, there wouldn't be the lotus.
Right. So beautiful. Well said.
Yeah.
So nice having you on. I love it.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I really want to listen to like all the other women you're going to have on here. Where is this going to be accessible?
Yeah. Well, I just started a YouTube channel, but I've been on BitChute.
BitChute. Okay.
Yeah. So let's go over your website and how people can connect with you.
So I have, my website is elevateyogastate.com. And on there, you could read more about my story, more about healing Kundalini. And then I have offerings. I just finished like creating 4 different ways you could work with me one-on-one. And I'm going to start doing also, I'm being very called to start a group for people who are on like wanting or curious about being on a sober path, right? You might not like be there yet, but you're like,
so wonderful.
You're like, oh, trying. So I keep being really called to do that. I've been called to do that for a very long time. So I'm going to start offering that online and also in person. So like, watch out for that.
Thank you.
Follow me on Instagram is probably where I'll update about that class. And I'm elevate_your_state. So. And
beautiful.
My name is Monique Riofrio. That's probably another way you could find me somewhere.
Yes, yes, yes.